Good morning. Welcome to Advisory Live. We're powered by Nasdaq IR Insight. I'm your host, Will Briganti, and joining me today as my guest is Mike Stiller. Mike is Head of Business Development at Nasdaq Corporate Solutions. And today we're going to talk about passive investing and our recently launched product, Passive IQ. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So it's March 13th. Passive IQ's been online for a couple of months now. Let's talk a little bit about passive investing and passive inflows. So obviously, 2017 was a pretty big year in terms of passive inflows. How does it look so far this year to date?
Yeah, so 2018's really kicked off the way 2017 ended.
Yeah.
We have about $8.4 trillion now in passive index AUM. That's up $122 billion year to date. Really, the interesting thing is we're seeing two specific trends within the passive investing index world, and I classify it as the two E's. Emerging markets and ESG. Those are the two leaders in terms of themes year to date. Emerging markets AUM on the index side is up about 4% year to date.
Yeah.
We've seen inflows 10 of the last 11 weeks, which is an impressive run. Last week was actually the first week that we saw an outflow, so maybe the trend's broken, we'll see. And then on the ESG side, AUM is up about 2% year to date.
All right, awesome. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, this is a topic we keep seeing. We keep reading about, we keep hearing about this, that there is going to be a lot more inflows from active into passive. But what this also means is that traditional index investors now have a voice, or they've always had a voice, and perhaps they're going to be a little bit more vocal. So there's a debate out there as to whether index investors, which have typically been referred to as passive, should be vocal and should be voting or not.
Sure.
Break that down for us. What are we seeing?
Yeah, so a colleague of mine, Dan Romito, has a new saying that passive's the new active. There's an interesting, really interesting debate out there, and we're hearing different sides of the coin where people from BlackRock, people from Vanguard are saying index should really have a voice in terms of corporate governance and things of that nature, employee diversity, board diversity, and then you have the other side of the coin, investors more on the active side from Janus. We saw the CEO of Janus.
With a letter in the journal.
An op-ed in the journal talk about how index should not vote. So there's a really interesting back and forth going on, and it's really feels like a crescendo, and really excited to see what happens the rest of the year, and as we head into proxy season, how this all unfolds. So we'll have to be watching that very closely.
Yeah, absolutely. My final question for you is about Passive IQ. So what are some of the kind of key highlights there a couple months into the launch for the product?
Yeah, so we're seeing some really exciting feedback and really high interest from issuers there. They really want to understand what indices they're part of, why they're part of those indices, what indices should they be thinking about targeting, as they go and think about where they're structured and how they're domiciled and things of that nature, and really just setting the stage for how to think about passive investing. I think historically issuers haven't really had a good understanding or a reliable resource, and that's what we're trying to do: provide a reliable resource, a place that has some education as well as some information to act upon.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this was Mike Stiller from Nasdaq Corporate Solutions. Thank you so much for tuning in to the March 13th edition of Advisory Live. For more information on Passive IQ, be sure to visit our website. That's business.nasdaq.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you back on Thursday.